spiritual awakening, it's common for us to become overwhelmed and lose sight of positive solutions that we could take to build the new earth. So today, I'm going to be sharing some positive solutions that all of us can take while we're going through a spiritual awakening in order to create that new earth. In my video, How to Find Your Purpose, I talk about how the more one awakens, the more attuned their consciousness becomes. Now, this attunement is very important because in order to take positive solutions that will help build a new earth, we ourselves have to be awakened enough to have attunement with our environment. So when we have attunement with our environment, what we are actually doing is taking into consideration what would be beneficial to those around us, including the environment, as well as ourselves. And what ends up happening is that the more we awaken, the more we become purpose-driven. So the more that we go through a spiritual awakening, our consciousness starts becoming more attuned to its environment, both internally and externally. We become more aware. And when we're more aware, that means that we become more attuned. We're not just only aware of ourselves, or we're not just only aware of the external. Becoming more attuned internally and externally is what happens when we're going through a spiritual awakening. It might not happen all at once, but that's the expansion process. It's going from inward to outward or from outward to inward, but it just starts becoming omnipresent in all directions, inner and outer. And while we're going through that expansion, we become very purpose-driven. So we have purpose, awareness, and attunement. If we have purpose, awareness, and attunement, we cannot go wrong in finding a positive solution. Because at that point, if a being has purpose, meaning they are compelled to help in some higher, meaningful way, and they are becoming aware, and then they're becoming attuned to their environment, to others, to themselves, to the world, then it doesn't really matter what you do. At that point, it's your own unique energetic fingerprint, or what's also known as Dharma. So Dharma means nature. Each of us have our own unique nature. And because of that, if we are aware, if we are attuned, and therefore going into a direction of applying that in some higher meaning, higher way that we would only know as purpose, then each person's own way and interpretation and gifts and nature would feed into how they will help contribute to creating a positive solution. So some of the positive solutions that are very foundational, very core to a new way of being would be health, conscious parenting, new models for education and living, but the most beneficial solution is to go through a spiritual awakening because Earth doesn't need us to save it. She needs us to evolve. Positive solutions can only come from individuals who are willing to embody an entirely new way of living and of thinking. The universe is purging all lower levels of consciousness from Earth. If we want to assist with the shift in consciousness, we can look for anywhere there is an outdated, unhealthy model of reality and make it more conscious so that it can go through an upgrade as well. If a person has nowhere else to start and they want to help be a part of positive solutions for creating a new Earth, then we can just pull everything back and look at these basic features and see where we have the most pull. We have the most life force moving in a certain direction. So it's very important for us to be able to tune in with ourselves and see where our life force feels called. Because purpose and new solutions for a new Earth are never going to ask you to go in a direction where you don't want your life force to move in. The universe is very synchronistic. It operates in such a way where if you feel called to supply your gifts and your life force in a specific direction, that is also going to align perfectly with exactly the positive solutions that others would benefit from and that the world would benefit from. So it's never going to ask you to not have a calling in a specific direction. Now, there can always be blocks that we experience to our life force. That happens all the time. So I don't want you to mistake us feeling blocked in our life force as feeling as though that is not the direction we should move in. Not everything that we feel called to do will feel good or be easy. In fact, many of us are called to be spiritual warriors and shed light on the darkest areas of this reality, such as human trafficking. That will not feel good, and we will experience many blocks and challenges. But that is still where we have life force to go, and that is how life force works. Life force does not care if something feels good or bad. It goes to wherever it feels called. That's why it's called a calling. In fact, there's a whole stage of awakening who don't feel good at all, and they are still on their path of purpose. If you'd like to know more about this phase of awakening, you can watch my video on it titled The Second Phase of Ascension. So we shouldn't really look towards if we feel bad or if we feel good when it comes to what solutions we want to be a part of when creating the new earth. Instead, what we look for is, where do we have a lot of life force that wants to move in that direction? And even if it's not a lot of life force, like it's not a surplus of life force, it's still important for us to attune ourselves within and see where our life force, even if it's just a small little inch of life force, where does that feel called? Because the more we attune internally to where our life force wants to move, without pressuring it, don't pressure it to be more than what it is. If it's just a little bit of life force, go with that. Don't try to judge it and constrict it and pressure it into being nothing now and paralyzed will. But if we just attune inwardly with where our life force naturally just keeps gravitating, keeps moving towards, and go there, it will unfold. But it won't unfold all at once. And because it won't unfold all at once, we might put pressure on it, or we might have a blocked vision of where it's leading to. But the most important thing to know about the universe and positive solutions for that new earth is that if you follow your life force, what's happening is we're becoming more aware. Sometimes when we become more aware, we can get put into shock, or we become overwhelmed with that new layer of awareness. Now, if we don't integrate that overwhelm, we can sometimes lose trust inside our own journey, or lose trust in where exactly this is unfolding to. And because of that, we might start getting hyper analytical around exactly what is my purpose, or what is positive solutions. There's no such thing as positive solutions. So we could get really pessimistic, or we could feel very hopeless, or we feel like we don't have a purpose and that we're disconnected from it. All of those are just because we're overwhelmed and we're not being able to see what's unfolding. But if we think of an actual unfolding, then naturally, if something is unfolding, we can't fully see it. So don't expect yourself to see something that is unfolding, because literally you can't see it, which is why it's called unfolding. So if we release the pressure from ourselves to have a purpose and to be fully aligned with it, or to have all of the vision for where we want to go and what those solutions are. If we already have that, that's beautiful and great. But if we don't have that, there's no need for pressure. We just start with wherever we have life force, wherever our life force wants to go. And in that direction, what's going to happen is that will universally, synchronistically, it will naturally just be the very thing that is a positive solution that happens to build and create that new earth. But if we are so concerned with what a positive solution is without following our life force, what's going to happen is we're going to get out of sync with our own unfolding, and we're going to take actions that may not really be the deepest wisdom. This happens when people value action over truth. We can accidentally take actions that just feed the old paradigm. If we are not willing to fully allow our journey to deepen, then it would be more beneficial for us to first start growing and start evolving before we get caught up in purpose, because we might not be yet at the level of universal consciousness. So our solutions might not really be that helpful in the first place, just being honest. But the more we go through a process where we just follow the life force, we're still bringing our Dharma, our unique energetic signature, into all of the things that we care about on our way to evolving into universal consciousness. So the more we go through a spiritual awakening, the more our awareness expands and the more our attunement expands. With that attunement and the awareness that's continuing to grow, you try to not have that lead to your purpose. It will become effortless. And I know that that sounds really weird because we might be overwhelmed or we might have a lack of resources in order to have that purpose. But the more we allow ourselves to just be all in and fully give however much our life force has to the direction it feels called to go, that will naturally be beneficial for all, and therefore it will naturally be a new earth solution. So a lot of us are very called to give life force to health or to healing, but we might be in the stage right now of simply collecting data, of simply becoming more aware, of researching, of learning. So all of the positive solutions really depend on what stage we're at. Now, technically, learning never stops, but there are points in our life when we're in more of one phase of becoming aware. And so one of those stages might be where we're becoming more aware when it comes to the external world and data, right? We might be really interested in collecting data and information that all has to do with, let's say, food or GMOs and how to heal our soil. Well, we are in that data phase. That's still helping become a new solution. It's just not done. It's just in one stage that will eventually progress. But another person who's also going through a spiritual awakening might want their life force to be called in a different direction according to their nature and according to their Dharma. They might feel like there's not enough joie de vivre in consciousness. They might feel like people who are awakened are more hardened and jaded and even bitter. So they might want to bring more creativity or more art and more fun to becoming conscious. Or else what's the point, right? If we're just going through a spiritual awakening and we don't see anyone at the other side of the hardest parts of those that look happy, then what's the point almost? So one person might want to lend their Dharma to some sort of creative expression that they want to bring to the world that will help even more inspire others to go through a spiritual awakening, or just help them go through their own healing process where we're stepping into our higher self. Because art and creativity are very important for a person to become more multidimensional. Specifically, what the arts and creativity do for our human consciousness is put it into the parasympathetic mode. And in the parasympathetic mode, now we can access higher consciousness. So the arts and creativity can even be looked at as the way that we get into an altered state of consciousness. And in altered states of consciousness, that's called the higher self, or that's called multidimensional. So when we're in an altered state of consciousness, that's literally how we integrate more of our higher self and how we embody more of our higher self. And altered states of consciousness are the core feature of all of esoterica. So one person might be very called to lend their life force into being the highest form of creativity in whatever that means, whether that's creativity in music or creativity in some form of creative expression and creative medium. But then you'll have people who are really into the tech field, and they want to lend their life force into altering the course of human evolution and putting humanity on the higher timelines for humanity by creating very crucial, very positive solutions that make technology the most organic form possible, while not at all being lured and seducted into the lower artificial intelligence timelines that technology is currently trying to groom all of human consciousness into. That wasn't biased at all. Another example of a positive solution that will create a new earth is healing. That's why so many people who are going through a spiritual awakening are drawn to the healing field. That's because if we're taking actions in the world to create a new earth, but they're not coming from a healed individual, then that's not going to create anything that will be a match to a new earth. It's just going to be recycling the old. So healing is one of the core features of having a positive solution that will go to a new earth, because everything has to start with healing in the first place. So even though many people feel called to many unique different areas, healing is also a very core feature that people will find when it comes to wanting to create a solution to a new earth, simply because that's where humanity is right now. We're in a stage of healing. So because we're even in an age, the spirit of this age is one of healing. Because of that, that's going to be something where many people also feel called into. Yet another person might have a lot of high fashion and a lot of style, and might want to fuse that with their heart center, and therefore use their love of fashion to be the staple of a new paradigm of how we have clothing, by somehow creating conscious, highly ethical fabrics and textiles, and then also having the most humane, ethical, and heart-centered ways of creating clothing from that fabric. Therefore, altering the entire paradigm we live in, which is one that is based off of resources from people we're disconnected from, who are essentially slaves. So this is the highest solutions we could possibly think of. So I gave a few, but when it comes to where our life force wants to go, it will always be beneficial to the new earth and to positive solutions that benefit others if we are attuned and aware. Because if we are attuned and aware, then wherever we're expanding will be beneficial for someone somewhere, if not all of humanity. We just might not have that foresight yet, but the universe can hold that higher network and that higher tapestry. So we always want to look, when it comes to new solutions, as it being something that changes the paradigm we are in, because a new earth is a different way of being. And that different way of being is called a paradigm. So we have to align with a different paradigm. We have to shift paradigms to even be able to have a new solution, a positive solution for the new earth. Or else we're recycling the old system and we're just playing musical chairs on a recycled system that was never meant to come into the new. So a new earth is a new paradigm, meaning a new way of doing everything, a new consciousness. So it's one that has a higher consciousness. Because of that, our journey is going to be one of expanding, one of growing and evolving into that paradigm. So if we really want to be a part of positive solutions that will shift our paradigm into a new earth, what we need to look at is the perception of universal consciousness. And if we tap into and embody the perception of universal consciousness, what you will find is that no matter which way you turn, the system of slavery is the old paradigm that needs dissolving, and we need to transition into one that is not based on any form of slavery. It doesn't matter if it's coming from a human, if it's coming from a plant, if it's coming from an animal, the more we expand our awareness, the more we expand our attunement, we will find that slavery is at the roots of this reality. And so a new paradigm would be one where the complete system, the complete way of being, is no longer reliant on slavery and is now one that is operating at a new level of reality. What would that look like? What would a reality, what would a new earth, a paradigm be like if it was not at all being generated by another person's suffering? So that is universal consciousness's perception. If we start creating solutions and we start seeing a new way of being and start implementing our actions for those, that would be positive solutions. And that would also have the full backing of universal consciousness. So what you would see is that the more you're in service to universal consciousness, the more universal consciousness will open those doors for you, will serve you, because you're doing the will of universal consciousness, which is transitioning our earth into a new way of being, into a new paradigm that is not based off of slavery. How would you interpret that? I will let your Dharma guide you for how that would look, because everyone's going to be different and be called in different directions. But if you know the core features being, it's not based off of slavery, it's not based off of another person or another thing suffering, then anything that you're doing is in alignment with that paradigm, is in alignment with being the positive solutions for the earth. I hope this has helped direct your life force. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakening. See you next time.